Nationwide, the housing crisis hit Latinos harder than any other group in the country. A Pew Hispanic Center survey found that 32% of homeowners underwater in the West are Latino. Many Latino face foreclosures, many more are underwater, and these desperate homeowners have been easy marks for a number of loan modification scams. Nevada Public Radio's Jude Jaffe-Block has this report.
Up until recently, if you tuned into Spanish-language radio in Nevada or Arizona, you might have caught an ad like this one, promising loan modifications. That ad was for Gustavo Anaya's services. It says you may qualify to reduce your interest rates and cut your monthly payments in half. For some of the homeowners who believed the claims, they turned out to be too good to be true.
They promise everything that's going to lower your payment. You're going to have it with low cost and everything. That never happens.
That's Yuridia Regosa. She and her husband saw Anaya give his pitch in Spanish on a half-hour TV infomercial that aired on the major Spanish-language stations in Las Vegas. The couple was having trouble meeting their monthly mortgage payments, so they went to Anaya's company, Executive Capitals, Inc., for a loan modification. They paid almost $3,000, but nothing changed. Even worse?
They make us stop paying the credit cards. They made us stop paying the house.
They say the company claimed the bank would renegotiate the mortgage if the couple stopped paying their bills. But now Regosa says their credit has tanked. They owe interest on their bills, and they must sell their home in a short sale. We made several attempts to reach Anaya for his response, but he did not answer messages left with his lawyers or at his last known address.
I just want him to tell the truth and give us the money back.
They weren't the only ones who had complaints about Anaya. Loan modifications can only be determined by banks, and it's now illegal for loan modification companies to charge clients up front. In 2010, Nevada's Mortgage Lending Division denied Anaya's company a license, citing violations of state regulations. Then in November, the Arizona Attorney General's office sued Anaya and his wife for their loan modification activities in Phoenix and Tucson. Finally, last month, Nevada's Attorney General's office filed criminal theft and mortgage fraud charges against him. Before his recent arrest, Anaya was regarded by some in the Hispanic community as a model businessman. Last August, the local Univision affiliate interviewed Anaya as an expert to give viewers tips on how not to be scammed.
Quieren mirar que la compañía que está haciendo la modificación es seria y que tiene años de experiencia.
In that clip, Anaya advised people to make sure the company that's doing the loan modification is serious and has years of experience.
I hate to say this, but it's hard to trust anyone in this industry anymore.
John Kelleher is Nevada's Chief Deputy Attorney General and is on the team that filed the criminal complaint against Anaya. He oversees the State Mortgage Fraud Task Force, which formed 5 years ago. At this point, they've received complaints about over 300 companies in Nevada.
Now, I will say that there are a lot of good, legitimate people that are out there doing loan modification help for people, but differentiating between the legitimate ones and the scammers is really difficult.
One of the safest ways to get mortgage relief? A nonprofit approved by the Federal Housing and Urban Development Agency. For free. There are over a dozen of these nonprofits in the Las Vegas area, but you aren't likely to hear their ads on the radio or on TV.
There's no way we can compete with advertising because we do not have the funds.
Margarita Reboyal runs Community Services of Nevada. It's a nonprofit that counsels homeowners in English and Spanish. She says too few people know about her services. Instead, she says they pay hefty fees to the companies and attorneys who advertise loan modifications on Spanish-language media.
And then they'll charge them $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and then at the end, there's no results. There's nothing. And then they hear about through a friend or a relative that we exist. Then they come to us after they already paid money to these attorneys, and then we do it for free. And we don't even get a donation.
Meanwhile, state and federal laws have made it harder for loan modification companies to operate in Nevada, but some have adapted. They're partnering with attorneys who don't face the same licensing requirements or regulations. In Las Vegas, I'm Jude Jaffe-Block.
And Jude Jaffe-Block's story comes to us from Fronteras, the Changing America Desk, a regional news-sharing collaboration between Nevada Public Radio and 6 other public radio stations across the American Southwest. Jude Jaffe-Block joins us now. Jude, great to have you back. All right, so where does the Gustavo Anaya case stand right now?
Well, from what I've learned from the Attorney General's office, there was an arrest warrant issued on February 22nd, and he has been picked up on that warrant and released on bond, and the charges are pending. And of course, there is no conviction. I mean, he has not been convicted of any crime at this point. The case is ongoing. And then in Arizona, what I learned from their Attorney General's office, where they have a civil suit, is that they're kind of in negotiations over settlement.
Now, you discovered that Gustavo Anaya wasn't licensed to be doing what he was advertising on radio and television. What do we know about why he was denied the license to be a loan modification counselor?
And actually, it appears that one of his companies did have a license, according to the records from the Mortgage Lending Division. But in 2010, there's this document that outlines why he's being denied this loan modification counselor license. And they actually cite that one of the requirements is to have a reputation for honesty and trustworthiness, and that he did not meet that standard based on some reports that they were getting, actually from law enforcement as far away as Fresno, California, that he was sort of operating outside of state laws there for loan modification. So that was one of the justifications, as well as the fact that the division investigation revealed that some of his employees were operating without a license.
You talked to several people who were victims of Anaya. What did they say about what they're doing now?
Well, yeah, and I got in touch with them with the help of Helena Garcia from Latinos en Acción, who's been talking with some of them. And, I feel like that they're just kind of waiting to see what happens and if there's an opportunity to get their money back at this point.
Now, you mentioned that he was working in Fresno. How widespread were his operations?
Yeah, I mean, what's clear to me at this point is that he was definitely in Nevada and Arizona. We've heard reports that he was, there's some, evidence that he was in Fresno as well as Denver, we've heard as well.
All right, I want to bring in John Kelleher now, the Chief Deputy Attorney General, and he also heads up the Mortgage Fraud Strike Force with the state of Nevada. John Kelleher, welcome to the program. Now, we want to make sure and note that Gustavo Anaya has been charged with but not convicted of any crime, and we understand that you can't comment on the Anaya case. But over the past few years, you've prosecuted a number of individuals that you offered fraudulent loan modification services. What are these individuals promising consumers that they should not be promising?
Oh, there's several red flags. One of the major ones, though, is anyone that's guaranteeing they can get you a loan modification. That's virtually impossible. You have to take each loan on a case-by-case basis. Every lender has different criteria. Every homeowner has different financial income. Some may be unemployed. Some may be underemployed. They may not qualify for a loan modification. And that's another red flag. A lot of these loan modification scammers, not the legitimate ones, but the scammers, are taking upfront fees and guaranteeing loan modifications for people that don't even qualify under any of the federal programs that are out there.
And they're taking these fees. I mean, are they just taking the money and leaving? Is it that brazen?
Many times it is, yeah. They kind of fly by night. They'll set up for a few months, collect a lot of money, shut down and disappear. They may pop up again under a different name. They may pop up affiliated with an attorney. It's very lucrative.
How do these people get, the scammers, how do they get people in the door? What are they doing?
Well, a lot of them are very well financed. What we've seen is loan modification scammers or loan modification scams are a front for organized crime and other type of criminal activity. So there's a lot of cash business being done. So they'll put TV, radio ads, billboards. You drive around Clark County, you still see the billboards up. So it gives the indicia of credibility and that they're legitimate. They have nice office spaces.
But wait a second. I heard you say organized crime. Has organized crime infiltrated the housing scam industry?
Definitely, yeah. We have cases involving your legitimate, your historically what people would consider organized crime, right down to drug cartels.
Cartels, mafia?
Correct. And anything that... Any industry where cash is one of the primary means of payment, we tend to see organized crime involvement.
And you talk about these advertisements, as we heard in the story. I mean, I want to know what the sales pitch is. And I think it's what you said, guaranteed. Is that how are they selling it, these people on these scams?
They guarantee loan modifications. Other things they do that are red flags is they tell them to stop making their mortgage payments or make your mortgage payments to us. Stop speaking to your lender. We will do all the communications. And many times in our investigations, we've found that they've taken the person's money, actually putting them in default when they weren't. And then the payments that they were making, that they were supposed to make on their behalf, were just pocketed, and there was no contact with the bank at all.
Give us an example of someone you've successfully prosecuted in the past few years, someone who is particularly active and successful as a loan mod scammer in this community.
There was a case we did not too long ago involving two individuals who were operating a loan modification company in the front of the storefront, and in the back they had a prostitution ring going, the escort service, and they also had another scam that they were running simultaneously where they were sending letters out to Bank of America mortgage holders and mortgage homeowners and telling them that your servicer has changed, now mail your payments to this new address. And because servicers have changed so frequently in the past few years, people didn't think anything of it. They would just mail their payments to the new address. Turned out the new address was a P.O. box that these two set up, and they were just blatantly stealing the money.
By the way, how did they get a list of the Bank of America mortgage servicers?
Good question. You can go online and look for anybody that's in foreclosure notices. They kind of just blanket it. The letterhead they were using was forged, so they would take a Bank of America. They might have taken the logo off of the Bank of America website and just cut and pasted it onto a letter.
What was the prosecution effort like? I mean, how long did it take for you to bring these guys down?
That case we did fairly quickly. We actually we got an anonymous tip on that, and we ran on it. We went down to the post office box, and we were able to actually seize the checks that were coming in, and we were able to put that one together. That was not typical, though. Most of these cases take quite a while to put together, only because the sheer volume of consumers involved, and it's a document-intensive process. We have to review everyone's complaint, obtain all the documents, review them, make sure that we can meet the elements of any crimes that we're going to charge.
And in those situations, what exactly do you need to prosecute successfully?
We would need copies of any of the contracts that the loan modification company is using, advertisements, any representations they may have made in writing, oral. We would need definitely a witness statement. We have a complaint form on our website that consumers can go to and download, and it states right on the complaint form what to include.
Now, I assume that you would need someone to come forward and report a crime. Have you found, though, that immigrants are less likely to do that?
Yes. That's one of these. I mean, this falls in the category of affinity crime. We've seen this unfortunately in Nevada far too often. But you have in the Hispanic or Latino community, you may have a language barrier, so they advertise in Spanish, which means you're going to get a larger portion of the business. And people coming in don't know. Sometimes they think they're speaking to an attorney when they're not. Or they may just take the person's representations at face value, trusting, and a lot of the things they're saying are just untrue.
And you touched on it too. In the Latino population, you do have a number of immigrants who don't speak English, and they're particularly vulnerable. And I wondered, is investigating and prosecuting fraudsters in the immigrant community any different or more challenging?
It's not different, and it's not challenging in terms of what we do in the course of our investigation. The only barrier we have is in terms of it may take a little bit longer because we do sometimes have the language barrier. We have Spanish speakers on our staff that obviously can help, but not all of our attorneys are bilingual, so we have to have an interpreter, so it slows it down a little bit, but we definitely have the resources to handle it. It just may take a little longer.
Does that mean that you have enough boots on the ground to do the work in the immigrant communities?
We could always use more. We definitely, we've had budget cuts over the past years, like all agencies have, and one of the things we always look for in our hiring is bilingual employees, because that's one of the areas I think we need to beef up, not just in our unit, but statewide.
Do we have any way of estimating how many scammers there are in this community?
No. It's really hard to tell. And, the thing is, some of these people may have been legitimate business people who were making a lot of money during the real estate bubble, and they had a quality and standard of life that they had to maintain. And now that they're not making that, they switched to doing.
But we don't even have a ballpark figure.
We have no, as you said earlier, we have complaints in our office. 306 companies. These are loan modification companies, and they average between 50 to 100, sometimes 200 complaints per company. But how many? Because we are a transient city. We have people coming in and out. It's hard to get a snapshot picture of how many scammers may be out there at any one time.
And do we have tough enough regulations and licensing laws in Nevada to prevent these type of scams?
Well, they're getting tougher, and I think the legislature has done a good job at addressing the problems. But unfortunately, what happens is, as soon as we pass legislation to address a problem, the scammers morph the scam. So we're always a couple of years behind. By the time we got the loan modification, the new legislation passed requiring the licensing and bonding and things like that, a lot of loan modification scammers had moved on to other areas of crime.
So you're 2 years behind. You're a couple of years behind.
The legislature is, because when a crime occurs, there's a period before it's discovered. Then it has to be reported. Then it has to be investigated. Then we take prosecutions. And by the time we have enough prosecutions to warrant a change in legislation, the scammers have already morphed.
All right, so what do you need from the legislators to make up that gap?
Well, I think we definitely need to – we have a 2-year the legislative process every 2 years. But, what we do need is more funding for law enforcement. We just need more boots on the ground. We can address these crimes faster and maybe highlight them to the legislature faster. But unfortunately, with the budget cuts everyone's going through, we're limited, and we're doing the best we can with dwindling resources.
All right. Many of these loan modification fraudsters are using advertising to get to consumers. They're using billboards and Spanish language media. It happens in English language media as well, though. Do broadcasters have any legal responsibility to review the legitimacy of the services that are being advertised?
As far as a legal responsibility, you'd have to ask your corporate counsel on that. But ethical, moral, they're paying it for advertising, and media is a business.
Well, could a television station or a radio station be prosecuted for giving broadcast time to an individual who's actively defrauding consumers?
Not unless they were facilitating the crime and knew about it and were a party to it. But the short answer would be no, and that's not something that we would prosecute. We're looking to stop the criminal activity. There's the media that are putting these ads on really wouldn't know any more than the public would know that crimes are being committed.
But do they have a moral obligation?
I think and we have had tips by media. So if anyone in the media industry or any industry thinks that a scammer may be doing business, you can call us, you can report it anonymously, and we will investigate it.
You've said in the tape that it's hard to trust anyone in the industry.
It is.
Why is that?
Because it's so difficult to tell. There's no black and white way to tell whether a person or a company is doing what they claim to be doing until and unless an investigation is completed.
When there are HUD-approved mortgage counselors in the community who will work with the consumer for free, why should anyone go to someone who charges for these services?
They shouldn't. We recommend that you go to the free HUD counselors. There's a backlog, and sometimes there's time issues, so people want to get help as quickly as possible. But I would caution anybody, if they're charging thousands of dollars for services that you can obtain for free, that's another red flag. You may want to avoid that company.
But how do they not know that there are free services out there?
Well, that's part of why we're doing shows like this today to make that the public awareness is definitely part of General Masto's agenda, and we try to do the outreach that we can to make people aware of it. But yeah, you're right. Not enough people know about the free services, and that's we need to make them more aware.
Let me turn back over to Jude Jaffe-Block. Jude, you asked some of these media companies for a reaction to the criminal charges that were brought against Gustavo Anaya. These are stations that ran his infomercials, and they even used him as a credible journalistic source. What did they tell you?
Yeah, well, and I spoke to that station, which here locally is Channel 15. It's the
the Univision affiliate, but it's not owned by Univision. It's the parent company is KINC TV, and they issued a statement in response to my question. They told me that they have a policy against fraudulent advertisers and that they have discontinued Executive Capital's advertisements, and that's a reference to one of Gustavo Anaya's companies.
And how many stations did you reach out to? How many actually responded?
Well, yeah, I didn't get responses from everyone, but I didn't get an official response from Telemundo, which also aired the ads and also pulled the ads. But I did find out not through official means that they had pulled the ads as well. And then I had a long chat with a man named Sam Loya, who's a sales executive at the Spanish language radio stations, a few of them, including La Buena, where a number of Gustavo Anaya's ads ran. And, I asked him about, given the fact that so many of these scam artists operate on Spanish language radio and other media, I asked him to comment, about how he personally sort of deals with that.
I have to describe myself. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American, or as I like to say, American-Mexican. It destroys me. I'm a native of Las Vegas. I'm a product of what this town has to offer, and I take it very personally when people prey upon the less fortunate. And unfortunately, a lot of it's done by people who've picked up the language and yet are of Hispanic descent. So, I try to do my best to keep an eye on things as well. And any report that comes across my desk or even my boss's desks, we do our due diligence to try to seek out the truth, as well as, a lot of people can accuse, you can be accused of a lot of things, but until proven guilty, we have to be fair on both sides.
Jude, are these advertisers wringing their hands over people like Anaya?
Well, I think that was Loya sort of grappling with this issue. But then what he went on to say is that because Anaya was not convicted of any crime, he was not obligated to take his ads off. And that, in fact, that wouldn't be fair because at this point he's innocent till proven guilty. And actually, Loya did defend him, saying, I still think he's a legitimate businessman. He's been doing this for a long time. We don't know. We know that maybe he did help some people and maybe not others. But frankly, the housing market is a very confusing thing to solve right now, and he can't solve everyone's problems. So I thought it was a really interesting insight. But then I went ahead and asked him what he would say to somebody who had heard an ad and then lost their home as a result, from Anaya specifically. This is his response.
I can sympathize with her. I lost my home. And I know not only Gus, I knew 5 other people who are lawyers and are very prominent here in town. There is no easy path to what's occurring here in Las Vegas. How could I state all I could suggest is she should have had a second opinion or a third opinion, and maybe she felt that was the easy route out. And I can't be responsible for that, or I'd drive myself crazy.
Jude, do we know which stations, networks were running Anaya's ads?
Yes. Telemundo and Univision were running these half-hour infomercials, and I've also heard TV Azteca as well, though they did not respond to my calls.
And did any of these companies, I wonder what they have to say about their obligation to the community, to their viewers, their readers, their listeners, to properly vet out their sources? Yeah, well,
I think that's kind of the question that popped into my head when I started reporting this story. Are there any sort of rules about this? Is there an overarching policy? Is it just a case-by-case basis? And I think that in a lot of regards, this is really an open question still, and sort of not something that's really very clear at this point.
And is that what Sam Roy was grappling with?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he did say that in his mind, he had made the distinction: if someone has not been proven guilty of something, he's going to keep advertising. I mean, even though we know that Anaya had been denied a license, for example, and apparently that wasn't a big enough threshold to take him off the air. Whereas some of the other stations, did take him off the air because of the charges that are pending, and they're not going to wait for a conviction. So there's obviously a discrepancy among the ways that media companies are dealing with this, and it doesn't seem like there's a real kind of uniform sense at this point.
We are talking about loan assistance fraud that is targeting Spanish-speaking homeowners with the waves of Latinos that are underwater or in foreclosure. A number of scams are popping up and targeting this community. I want to turn now to Tina Sanchez. She's a foreclosure counselor for the Community Services of Nevada. That's a nonprofit group that helps people with foreclosure and other housing issues. Tina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Why are Latinos falling for these scams?
Well, again, like John was saying, there's a lot of advertisements out there, by attorneys or companies stating that they will guarantee loan modification, whereas a nonprofit organization does not guarantee. Another reason, I think, is that they feel that if they pay a fee, that they will get faster service and definitely a loan modification. A nonprofit organization doesn't guarantee that. We do counsel the clients and we tell them, this is not a guarantee. All we can do is, submit your paperwork to to your lender, and they will decide whether you will get a loan modification or not if you qualify.
I wondered how much of this is cultural. You have these Spanish-speaking folks, they see someone on television who's a lawyer or claims to be a lawyer, and they trust what they hear.
That's correct. They do. They are very trusting, and they believe the advertisements, and they believe that if a lawyer comes on TV and says, I will guarantee a loan modification, they will definitely find the money and go to that lawyer and pay the lawyer to modify their loan. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen.
Why is it tough for legitimate nonprofits to get the word out to Latinos that there is free help about this that's available?
Well, as nonprofit organizations, we are not given any type of funding for advertising. A lot of it is, we have the HUD on their website. They list the different housing counseling agencies that do offer the services free, but that's as far as it goes.
So is it the advertising? If you had the flashy ads, you get more people to come in? Or it goes back to what I was asking, though, about these lawyers. If they see a lawyer, do they trust the lawyer more than they would a nonprofit?
I believe that they do trust a lawyer more than they trust a nonprofit because they don't see us as an attorney or lawyers. They just see us as a nonprofit who's offering free services. And maybe, like I said, we don't guarantee that their loan is going to get modified. We just provide the services that HUD tells us that, we need to provide as far as counseling and making sure that they're attending a class and things like that. And a lot of people don't want to go through our hoops, jump through our hoops to, get their loan modification.
They want to show up. Somebody's going to say, I'll take care of it for you. That's it.
That's correct, yeah.
Can you give us an example of a case or a type of fraud that you've encountered?
Well, as a matter of fact, just last week I had 2 clients who came in who had gone through a company called Bella Homes. Bella Homes was, they came in and they told the homeowner, we're going to purchase your home. And once we purchase your home, we're going to allow you to stay there, and you can just pay, a lease amount or rent amount. And we're going to take care of everything. You don't have to do anything else with your lender. Do not contact your lender. We're going to contact your lender. And we are going to purchase a property, and you'll be able to stay here. When your financial situation gets better, then you will, if you want to, you can purchase your property back. None of that happened. Bella Homes did not contact the lender. They told them to stop paying their mortgage. Any letters that they received from the lender or any calls that they cut from the lender, they were told to forward over to Bella Homes. Again, they paid Bella Homes $3,000. And I saw the paperwork. Everything looked so legitimate. Everything looked like it was an actual closing, but in fact it wasn't.
And what happened at the end? What did they lose?
They lost everything. I had a client who now owns the bank $39,000. He's behind $39,000. And Bella Homes targeted, these were probably senior citizens, older people. And they are now, all we can do is submit the paperwork to the lender and hope that the lender, will modify their loan.
And you talk to these people face to face.
I do.
What is that like? I'd wonder when you look at the paperwork and you think you trust somebody and you find out you've lost your money, now you've lost your house. What are those conversations like?
They're very heartbreaking because the one couple that I saw last week, he's 85, she's 70. He is trying to find a job at his age with, he's been diagnosed with COPD. He's legally blind. He is trying to see if he can find a job to be able to pay his mortgage, because he was scammed through a company that did not care about them at all. And so it's very, very heartbreaking to see people like that, to think that at his age, he still needs to go out and try to find a job to be able to pay his mortgage.
And anyone that might fall victim to a scam, there's probably also a sense of embarrassment as to what happened. But
yes.
They trusted these people.
They did. They believed.
Afterwards, what are they thinking and feeling? And the fact that they looked at this guy, these people, and said, "I believe in you, and that you're going to help me."
That is true. It's a feeling where they feel shameful that they, fell to the trap and they believe that somebody was going to help them. All we can do is tell them, it happens to a lot of people. You are not the only one.
How many people, by the way, don't tell? Sometimes the embarrassment is too big and they do not want to admit that they fell to a scam.
Well, most people, by the time they come to our office, they pretty much are, they tell us, we fell victims to this scam. We really believe that they were going to help us, and it didn't turn out that way. And, they spent their life savings, and they've been paying, for instance, Bella Homes, they were paying, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. And now they have no money. They have no money to be able to, catch up.
Let me turn now to Enrique Acuna. He is a local attorney and president-elect of the Las Vegas Latino Bar Association. Enrique Acuna, welcome. A number of Gustavo Anaya's former clients have come to you for help. How many?
I've actually consulted with quite a few that have talked to me about.
When you say a few, what are we talking about, though? A dozen,
I would say
more?
about a dozen or so. And I've given quite a few consultations, some that have actually signed up as my clients. And so I did recognize it as a problem for a while. I actually, for one of my clients, as I was going through my files, I found that I tried to get his money back over a year ago. And I sent a letter out to Gustavo Anaya's office requesting a refund of the money. And
did you get it?
We didn't. He actually got a response. He responded. And, at that point, as a private attorney, if you have someone that's not going to give you the money back, then the only option is, you could take it to litigation. And then the question is, how to proceed? Who's going to pay for that? And my client decided that he did not want to proceed in that matter, and so we decided on a different approach.
What's the common thread of the storyline when people come to you about this? What do you usually hear?
Well, almost all of the clients or potential clients that have come in, they all thought that he was an attorney. And
did he tell people, I'm an attorney?
I can't say that he did because I wasn't in the room, but they all got the impression that he was an attorney. Maybe he did say that, or maybe his staff were telling them that he was an attorney. I can't speak to that. The only thing that I could speak to is that most of the people that have come to me have said that they got that impression. And these are salespeople that they're dealing with. These are people that use high pressure sales tactics. They talk about things like, and then the question is there a guarantee of results, or is it the way that they, these sales tactics that they use when they talk about, this is what I've been able to do with other clients. I've been able to get their loan modification reduced from $2,000 to $1,500 or to $1,000. You know, I mean, it's really kind of a blurs the line as to between a lie or a promise.
All right. When these people come to you, do you direct them to the free HUD-approved nonprofit, or do you offer these individuals services?
You know, I think it's funny because I did not know that there were free services. As an attorney, I didn't know that people could get loan modifications for free. You know, I think that we kind of as attorneys are in the same boat as the public. We're not aware that there are the services are out there. If I would know that, I mean, I think that there's plenty of people that come to me that don't sign up that I would refer them to these free organizations.
But, you're an attorney, so what can you offer them when it comes to loan modification assistance?
You know, the first thing that I do as an attorney is I have to analyze their situation. And I think that John was dead on when he said, you cannot, there's some clients that should not be trying to get loan modifications. You know, it's a very simple analysis from what I've seen in my experience in successfully obtaining loan modifications for my clients. I don't even like to take loan modification cases because they require so much paperwork. But the analysis is actually very simple. It's, you know, there's a formula for the HAMP program that I apply. I get information from the potential client. I ask, you know, I get all the information that I feel is pertinent. I apply that formula to their situation, and I tell them honestly, you should not be paying anyone, including me or any other attorney or anyone in anywhere, to try to get a loan modification. And then I try to have an honest discussion with them about what other options they have. And I frankly do not do loan modifications just because I would not feel ethically, I would not feel, I mean, there's legal and then there's moral. I would not feel ethically able to take someone's money if I didn't feel that I could reasonably obtain a positive result for them. And I think with loan modifications, as it's kind of been discussed here, it's so much is up to the bank that for me, it's not worth taking a client's money to try to get one.
Am I hearing, though, from you that basically any attorney in the Valley who's doing loan modifications is being ethically dubious?
I did not say that. You know, I'm the president-elect of the Latino Bar Association, and I know that you know, several of our members do loan modifications, and they do take time to analyze each individual situation. And I think that for me, that's what I feel is necessary.
All right, as you mentioned that you are a member, you're the president-elect of the Las Vegas Latino Bar Association, and you and your colleagues have recognized this as a problem and want to do something about it. Do you have a crisis in the legal community that there are individuals defrauding consumers in your midst?
You know, I obviously, from my personal experience with people that I've talked to, that you know, Latinos that are primarily Spanish speakers that have come to me seeking legal assistance with resolving the problems that they've had, I've seen that it is a major problem in the community. I even am unaware, though, of the extent of it. And, you know, I think it's an impossible figure. We cannot know how widespread this problem is. We could just speculate.
And what about your colleagues and the other folks with the association?
You know, we can only speculate as far as the people that come to us seeking assistance, either trying to get a loan modification or some other type of legal assistance, whether it's through bankruptcy or assistance in some other area. We do talk about amongst ourselves kind of, you know, what we can do to try to help people. And I think it's going to really take a multifaceted approach to do that.
And, you know, Nevada being a state that has limited regulation, doesn't that put more of a burden on the legal community to self-police?
Well, and I think that that's what the state bar is there for. That's where we do have ethical rules and regulations that we have to abide by. You know, as John said, the major red flag is anyone that guarantees a result. No attorney should ever guarantee a result in any case that they're involved in.
But do you ever have any of those back channel conversations about attorneys that might be bothersome?
In what way? That
might be doing something that you know is...
Well, as an attorney, we also have ethical responsibilities to report any other attorneys that are violating the ethical, the rules of professional responsibility in the state.
And have you ever reported any attorney?
I've never seen anything that has violated the professional rules. If I did, I would report them. I think that, we try to be congenial with each other. We work together, but, attorneys have such a bad reputation that it is a very important responsibility as an attorney to self-police our ranks, to make sure that we are doing the right thing. And I could relate a lot to what I believe his name was Sam. He was the salesman for the radio station. I'm also a first generation American Mexican, and it really pains me to hear that people are being ripped off in the community by the same people in our Latino community. So it's a very frustrating thing to listen to being here. And more than anything, what I'm getting an understanding of here is that we have to work harder to help the community and work together and be able to be more of a resource.
All right, now you say work harder, but what do you think needs to be done about this issue?
Well, thankfully, one of our members of the Latino Bar Association is Assembly Member Lucy Flores. She's the first Latina Assembly member elected here in the state of Nevada. And so I think, one aspect definitely is we need more regulation. This is, compared to even Arizona or California, there's we need more laws on the books. We need more more tools that the government can use to protect the public. I think you are absolutely correct that attorneys have to work harder to. First of all, we have to educate ourselves about what is the right thing to do when we're dealing with the loan modification industry. I think there's the approach that I take, which is, I believe, more of a moral obligation than a legal obligation. And then educating the public. Those are three very important ways of doing that. And I think, our organization, Latino Bar Association, is going to be an important avenue to achieve all those three things.
As we've been talking about, we learned earlier that Latinos are more likely than non-Hispanic whites to be underwater on their mortgages or facing foreclosures. And of course, with this growing vulnerable population, we're seeing more scams popping up, people who are promising loan modification services. And these frauds are targeting the Spanish community. Why is this community so vulnerable? And is there enough effort to educate this group of people, anybody, about how these scams work and how to spot them? I wanted to come back over to Enrique Acuña again. He's an attorney here in Las Vegas, and he's a president-elect of the Las Vegas Latino Bar Association. You wanted to mention something, by the way, is the fact that we are having this conversation, but there was something else that you wanted to mention about the local Spanish media.
Sure. I mean, we talked about how these, purported scammers are getting their clients, and it's by heavily advertising in Spanish language media. When something goes wrong and these people are arrested or they start facing charges, and the question is, what moral responsibility or legal responsibility do these media outlets have to report to the public, to their listeners, that there has been arrests or there are investigations or continuing. And I just, we hear the advertising, but then as far as on the news programs, they don't really report on them as much to inform the public when the scammers are arrested or facing charges.
And what do you think the responsibility should be for these media companies to their viewers and their listeners?
Well, as an attorney, obviously there's, I'm not sure if there's a legal responsibility, but again, as someone with a moral conscience, I believe that they do have that responsibility to inform the public of potential scammers that have been advertising on their media.
And Jude Chaffee-Block, did any of the companies that you talked to, any of the stations you talked to, mention anything about that? Did they come back and say, we didn't want to run these ads?
They didn't reveal to me anything from their news department. I did see that Univision did do a report where they mentioned Gustavo Anaya's arrest in passing, but it was sort of a footnote to a different story about a different attorney's complaint, actually. So, I mean, it was interesting to me that they didn't have a full-fledged story given sort of how prominent he'd been on the channel. But,
Right.
and actually just, in talking about this, I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to report on this issue was actually an ad I saw in El Tiempo from a real estate agent. And I don't actually think that agent was doing anything wrong when I bring up this ad. It's not to criticize him, but it's to give a sense of the climate, because his ad actually was looking for people who wanted to do short sales. And his pitch was, have you gone to a loan modification company and been ripped off? Then did you go to an attorney who ripped you off for more thousands of dollars? Well, if that's the case, come to me and I'll help you do a short sale. And, when I saw that, I was like, wow, there is a big enough market out there of people in that situation that this is a way that somebody is advertising. And
Right.
so that really kind of blew my mind.
I mean, we hear these kind of things. Enrique Acuña, and you mentioned a little while ago, too. You said it. We need more, laws on the books here. And I'm wondering, what state laws do we need?
Well, on the one hand, we've got the Constitution that guarantees freedom of speech. And so it's a very difficult line to draw. The state of Nevada passed a law requiring all people that are doing loan modifications to get registered. The people that didn't get registered were doing loan modifications, and they found the loopholes in that law. They started working under attorneys, so it's a moving target.
All right, let me come back over here to John Kelleher again, Chief Deputy Attorney General for the state of Nevada. John, what should state legislation target that would allow us to bring more of these scammers to justice?
Well, I think you have to look at the problem in the context of the overall umbrella, the big picture. Loan modification is one part of a big puzzle. We've got loan origination fraud we're dealing with. We've got foreclosure fraud we're dealing with. We've got fraudulent assignments and transfers in the foreclosure process. And then we've got the loan modification. But eventually it all goes back to the same question. Is anybody even getting legitimate loan modifications? Are you getting principal reductions? Probably not. And if you are getting a principal reduction, if you're $200,000 underwater or $60,000 or $100,000 underwater and they give you $10,000 principal reduction, that's not going to make an impact.
All right. You know what? But I hear you say that you need more boots on the ground, and I'm hearing Enrique Acuña say we need some more laws, but this is a state that doesn't like big government. So you're asking for more government, right, Enrique Acuña?
Well, and just really briefly, in response to what John said, I have actually obtained quite a few principal reductions. There has been more pressure put on the banks, and I think that we're getting better results for our clients through alternative processes, either through the bankruptcy process or through the foreclosure mediation process.
All right, but how do you push for these kind of regulations, again, in a state that doesn't want a whole bunch of regulations?
I agree. It is something that is counter to kind of the culture of Nevada, but I think it's become such a large problem that something has to be done. We're dealing with a vulnerable population that, for the most, and Las Vegas has, as a proportion of its Latino population, the largest proportion of immigrant and Spanish-speaking Latinos, I believe, of any major city in the country. So it's a very vulnerable population. I think they just need that extra protection.
And I think that they should also contact their assemblymen and their state senators and let them know that they want this problem addressed.
And John Kelleher, another thing, too, is I wondered if this culture in Nevada, talking about laws and regulations, if that kind of ties your hands as a prosecutor.
That's kind of a loaded question, but we do the best we can with the laws on the books. Would we like more resources? Definitely. Would we like more laws to give us more tools to use? Definitely. It's not my job to make those laws. That again has to go to the congressmen and the senators and the assembly. But we try to do the best we can, but we need more, and I think the public needs to contact the legislators and let them know.
All right, Tina Sanchez, what about you? What do you think? What kind of rules or regulations do we need there on the books to stop these scammers, protect the population?
Well, again, you said, this is a state that doesn't like regulation. However, there definitely has to be more regulation, or these scammers are not ever going to stop. I mean, they're always going to be popping up. And, there's no way to control it because people are going to believe the ads and what is being advertised.
But do you think regulations is enough? Because we talked about how the Latino population, the immigrant population, I should say, actually is easy to believe maybe what they see on television. And if you tell them that you're a lawyer, they're going to believe you. Is regulation enough, or is it something more? Is it something, again, cultural?
Yeah, definitely something cultural because they are very trusting and they believe what they hear. I would just like to say, also, to the people that are finding themselves in foreclosure is to definitely don't pay any money up front. If you need help, look for the nonprofit organizations that are offering this, free service, and they can go to the HUD website, which is hud.gov, and they have a list of all the nonprofits. We have been seeing a decline in clients coming in to seek foreclosure help, and I believe that's because of all the advertisement out there with all the lawyers that are saying that they will give the free service. Or give the...
I'm going to have to end it there. I apologize because of time. Tina Sanchez, again, is a foreclosure counselor with the Community Services of Nevada. We also heard from John Kelleher, Chief Deputy Attorney General. He heads up the Mortgage Fraud Strike Force for the state of Nevada. Enrique Acuña is an attorney and president-elect of the Las Vegas Latino Bar Association. And our reporter, Jude Jaffe-Block, who reports for Fronteras, the Changing America Desk. Folks, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our producers are Irene Noguchi and Lee Hernandez. Technical director is Rich Copeland. Ian Milchrist is our senior producer. Jude Jaffe-Block is our reporter, and Alexia Garodi is our intern. The news director of Nevada Public Radio is Adam Burke. If you'd like to continue the conversation on anything you've heard today, just go to our website, knprtalk.org. I'm Luis Hernandez. Thanks for joining us for another edition of KNPR State of Nevada.